Hello, everybody. Um, Hope everybody's doing well. I have a lot of things that I'd like to touch on, so it may take a couple of videos for me to actually get through it all. So I will try to be very focused as best I can, and I will try not to dilly-dally like I'm doing right now. To try to help me, I've begun typing out notes regarding items that people have asked me about, or that I've learned about, or that I've just been talking to others about that I thought might be beneficial to some. It may not, but you don't know unless you try. And at least having this information out there, it may prompt others to do it as well. So, a question that I was asked was about MRIs and EEGs, different tests that I have undergone throughout the process. And I have to be perfectly honest, in the early days back in 1999 when I first started showing symptoms and was diagnosed, I do remember some of the tests that they had done. Some were done here locally. Others I had to travel to the provincial capital where they had more resources and better doctors. And they were things like MRIs. I don't believe any EEG was done at the provincial capital in Halifax, but they did some blood work. They focused mostly on imaging tests, and thankfully I had some fantastic doctors, neurologists at the time who believed what I was saying and listened to what I was saying, and they quickly came up with a diagnosis for PNKD. So I was very fortunate compared to most. That did change in late 2011, early 2012, when my disorder changed, I guess is the best way for me to explain it. What happened was, if you look at my earlier videos, you will see that my episodes were they were tight, I guess typical dystonic postures. They would be, the episodes themselves would be precursed by what I call an aura, and I see a number of people using that term as well. I would always have a headache within 24 hours of the episode, and it was, I had prior knowledge that it was going to come. I didn't know exactly when, but the headache and then the aura, it was telling me, okay, it's time to either stop driving or to just chill and allow it to happen and take my medication until it was over. So, but starting in December of 2011, I started having more episodes where I was originally every 3 to 5 days between episodes. When we went gluten-free in the household, when our daughters were diagnosed with celiac disease, I was actually getting up to a week, sometimes more, in between episodes. The only change at the time was the diet. So I do attribute that to probably two things. One being the diet itself, and two being the huge relief of stress of finally knowing what was wrong with our youngest daughter, who was she was quite sick. We were quite worried about her, but thankfully she's doing great now. I mean, she's a healthy, active 9-year-old, and she's uh, extremely good dancer. Not to be bragging about my kids, but uh, she's a totally different child now, and developmentally, she has gone leaps and bounds. Um, so yeah, come December 2011, I started having more episodes. They were more frequent. They became daily, then progressing to twice a day. Uh, Once the new year rolled and we were into January, I was having uh, two, three, four episodes per day. We attempted to go to, I started filming more just because there were changes and it had been a long time. And I wanted to make sure that I was prepared going to doctors, knowing what I had known. And in doing that, uh, it did it showed me the differences and how things were progressing. And it showed me that I really had to kind of take steps to try to stop it, or at least get the help that I may possibly need. So in uh, early January, we started to we made a first attempt to go to the emergency room at the hospital. The neuro at the time who was on call, he decided himself that it wasn't worth seeing me or that I didn't need to be seen. They, because of the symptoms I was showing, they made the assumption in the call that it was withdrawal symptoms. And that's really the first time that I kind of experienced this whole negative journey that a lot of people experience. I was not happy. And my wife either. I mean, she was worried, as was I. Uh, and having somebody say this, a medical professional say this to you, it was disheartening. So they basically told us to go home and just kind of try to deal with it, get some rest, and hope that it will go away. I went to see my GP after that. After that, pardon me. He put me on zopiclone to try to help me sleep, to see if it would slow down the disorders, but it just didn't agree with the Valium I was taking nor my system. So he felt there was an interaction, a negative interaction between the two. So we put the kibosh to that, and I just went back to taking the Valium. He recommended a Valium in the morning and at night. If I had episodes in between, he was kind of okay with me taking it, but we were hoping that we weren't going to have issues. A couple of days later, we went back to the emergency room because uh, the episodes continued to change. They were not as tight, but it was almost like a full body tremor, I guess is the best way for me to explain it. Uh, Upon that visit, again, we were refused by the neuro. They refused to see me. And this in spite, I don't understand this, but in spite of the fact that I was diagnosed years ago with a movement disorder, a neurological disorder, they still did not see a need to see me. On that visit, they accused me of being an alcoholic. When my wife explained to them that I was not a drinker, I may average over the year a beer a month, possibly two. And what they told her, and I heard it with my own ears, was that your husband is lying to you. You need to get the full truth, because what he's showing, uh, they're symptoms of alcoholic, somebody who drinks a lot. So you can imagine how happy we were. It obviously wasn't a pleasant thing. So that was the second visit. Again, we were told to go home. January 20th, it was nonstop. It didn't matter. I was taking Valium first thing in the morning, throughout the day, to try to get any sort of relief that I could. I might get a half-hour relief from a Valium, uh, but from morning to night until the Valium eventually just put me to sleep, there was no relief. It was just constant. So with that, I mean, I could barely talk. Uh, my wife finally decided enough was enough. She had seen enough of me dealing with this and trying to fight it off, which I wasn't going to be able to. So she called an ambulance. They took me by ambulance. That, at least, tip for you, at least it forces them to look at you. It forces them to call on a doctor that can hopefully help you. Uh, I could go on for probably an hour with just that whole experience of being in the emergency room and the the ER doctor not having a clue what dystonia was. We gave him a DVD that we always had in my wife's purse for just such an occasion. It had videos on it of what the episodes looked like. It had a text file basically explaining what dystonia was, what the triggers were, what medications were known to help, and just basically trying to give them the Coles Notes version of what to do with me. He really was not comfortable making any calls at the time to try to help, so they ended up calling up the line to larger hospitals with specialists who basically told them to go to the Ativan, and it helped temporarily, enough for them to say, okay, you can go home. I got about 30 feet out of the bed, and I had to turn around and come back. Uh, that resulted in a 5-week hospital stay. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is it brings me back to the question of the testing. While I was in the hospital, in order to combat the constant episodes, I guess dystonic storm, if you want to call it, I don't really know exactly what it was because everything so much changed at that point in time. They kind of they just relied so heavily on medications. So they, in addition to the diazepam that I was on, they added a number of different medications. They added valpuric acid. They added the lorazepam. They added nabilone. They added baclofen. And I was taking all these daily from morning till night, to the point where I couldn't function. I mean, my people would come in to see me. I wouldn't even know they were there. I couldn't use my phone. I would have to ring a nurse to dial a number for me so I could call somebody. My wife and children, they brought in food for us to share during Valentine's Day, which I was in the hospital for, and it was those pre-baked chickens that you can buy, the barbecue ones, and she bought cheese and some crackers and some dessert, and my kids still laugh at it, but I just kept referring to chicken in a box. I couldn't understand how she bought chicken in a box and it was so good and it was so moist and there was a lot of taste to it. It was really good, but I just didn't understand how she could buy a chicken in a box. Didn't come in a box, but that was how the old brain was processing it. All the while, my youngest was just asking her, "Why is Daddy talking so slow? Why is Daddy talking so slow?" So the meds just, they kind of took over. So those weeks are quite a blur, but I do know, in talking with my wife, there were a lot of tests done. There were EEGs done. There were MRIs done. I just brain farted on the name of the test. There was one that they do, and it's basically they insert needles into. For me, it was into my legs and into my arms, and what they do is they go down to the muscles and the nerves, and they kind of tug on them a little bit just to see what sort of reaction you get out of it. I'm sure it was painful, but because of the medication I was on, I didn't really feel a whole lot other than discomfort. So they tried that. They did blood work after blood work, trying to find an answer to what was going on. Um, they did a spinal tap. It was a very unpleasant experience. That was simply because the doctor, uh, who was probably already frustrated with me, when he went in, they couldn't do it because I couldn't sit up. They had to lay me on a table on my side, and when they inserted the tool to do the spinal tap, um, whenever he would touch uh, my spinal cord, it would cause my legs to kick out. And he kept telling me to keep my legs still, but I had no control over my legs. So he was frustrated. Nothing came out of it anyway. The spinal tap came back clean. There was no damage. After that, the the typical remedy for the massive headache that you get after spinal tap is a caffeine cocktail, they call it, and it's just a loaded up super caffeine drink that they give you, which is supposed to put the headache. Now, you're probably shaking your head, or you're probably wondering what I'm going to say next, and yeah, you know what's coming. Caffeine, as you know, it's a trigger for dystonia, and I would take the caffeine cocktail, and it would just cause more episodes. And the pressure from the episodes on my head, it made the headache worse. So they would come back with another cocktail, and then after probably 3, maybe 4 of these cocktails, I just flat out refused them. I couldn't. My body couldn't handle it. At one point, while taking them, I sneezed, and I got to tell you, it felt like my head exploded. So if you can avoid the caffeine cocktail, if you do happen to have spinal tap, avoid it. What helped me was a family friend had come in to do Reiki on me, and it was a huge help. I also had another friend who came in to do massage therapy, focusing explicitly on um, my neck and my head to try to alleviate the pain. And after one session of each, there was a huge difference. So if that helps anybody, please try to do it. If you're hearing a weird noise, it's just my cat beside me. She's a heavy snorer, so I apologize. Um, it's getting a little bit long here, so I think what I'll do, I really want to mention this one thing. Uh, Sophie Chartrand, I hope you don't mind me mentioning your name, but I really need to kind of uh, to put a bold outline around what she has accomplished and what she has shared with the group. She, with her doctors, is extremely knowledgeable. She has a great doctor. Um, she's very open to sharing what she learns. So please, when you see posts by Sophie, uh, don't just skim over them. Like, it's something to really pay attention to, because she has some very good doctors who are very much in the know and are very willing to learn more. Uh, there's a lot of stuff there that she is posting that can help you. And the one thing that I can, from experience, say will definitely help anybody who is trying to get a diagnosis, who is fighting through the diagnosis journey, uh, or is just wanting to try to help themselves by finding what exactly triggers and what helps. A daily journal. Uh, I cannot stress how important a daily journal is for anybody who's dealing with any kind of an illness. Um, Document your sleep patterns. um, how much caffeine you're drinking, what you're eating, if you have naps in the day, any exercises that you're doing, and just how you're feeling that day. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling happy, if if you receive good news, if you receive bad news, the more detail that you can put into that journal, the better it is, not just for you, but for the doctors that you're going to see. And bring that journal with you and let them read through it. Don't be shy. The reason for this is to give them more information. Uh, if you get a 10-minute window with a specialist or a new neurologist, they have 10 minutes of talking to you to try to determine what it is that is actually causing your health issues. If you go simply by just that 10-minute window, that's a pretty small sample. But if you have 2 months worth of a journal with you, and you can provide that to them to go through, whether you have to leave it with them and go back and pick it back up, or if they take photocopies of it to skim through it and go through and analyze it, it's giving them such a large sample to go by, and they can be much more accurate in terms of how they diagnose you. It could mean the difference between a solid diagnosis and something that we probably all fear when they come back and say a word like psychogenic. Um, it's just, I just can't stress enough how important it is. Um, we did it with our youngest when she was very young, and I have noted in my mind that it helped save her life. Celiac disease is not a death sentence, but for her at her age, her organs were failing. It's, between that and my wife just fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting to get her tested, that we may not have her now. So again, a journal. Parents, if you have children with dystonia, or you feel or have been diagnosed or misdiagnosed, a journal. It's so easy to do. And once you get in the habit of, after a couple of days, it becomes second nature. What time do they go to sleep? You mark it in. What time do they wake up? Mark it in. What do they have for breakfast? What do they have for lunch? How are they feeling overall? Are they tired? Are they energetic? Are they sore? How many episodes do they have? What type of episodes? What part of the body do they? As much information as you can get into that journal, I highly recommend it. That's the best advice that I think any of us can give. And Sophie, thank you so very much for providing that tidbit to us, and it shows that it is successful. It does work. You've heard it from Sophie, you're hearing it from me, and I'm sure there will be others who will come back and say, yeah, it does work. And if you haven't tried it and you're still in the journey of diagnosis, by all means do it. Even if you're 2 weeks before your appointment, it's still 2 weeks is a hell of a lot longer than 10 minutes. So please do it. It's for your benefit. It's for the benefit of the doctor. We know better than anybody what we're going through and the challenges we face. So let's do what we can. Share that knowledge, share that information with the doctors so that they can help you. Give them a chance. I know we crap on them from time to time, and I'll touch on it in probably my next video about it, but if we can help them, let's do it, because they're the ones. Without them, we're kind of on our own, and as strong as we are, we do need them. We do. And if they're going to improve things, they need us. So let's do the best we can to keep that relationship somewhat copacetic. And that's all I have for today. I hope you're all well, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.